That night, we were just folding up, getting ready to go to bed when we heard this pop, 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 pop stuff going on. And we thought, oh, there's some kind of exercise. And then we saw machine gun fire. We could see the tracers. And if you can see the tracers, you know those aren't blanks.
Annyeonghaseyo, this is Mark Peterson with the Frog Outside the Well Research Center, and I'm back today with my good friend, Dodge Billingsley. You met Dodge before, documentary filmmaker. We talked about the film that he made, that I helped with, 2009.
You're kind of modest on that. It was pretty much a collaboration. I mean,
well, if
you were
gonna,
Mr. Korea, so I mean,
well, if you're going to give me credit, I'll take that. Okay. Anyway, we did a film together on Unfortunate Brothers, the North Korean refugee that came south. In the process of doing that video, we found someone that I didn't know was still alive, and that was a man who was part of a commando squad in 1968.
North Korean commando.
North Korean commando, who had come down in
Infiltrated the border.
an outrageous plan to come across the DMZ. They crossed the DMZ, and everybody knew they had come across because there are all sorts of electronic sensors, even back in 1968. They knew they'd come across, and they were looking all over for them. What they didn't know is this squad of 31 commandos were highly trained marathon runners. And then when they came through the DMZ, they ran and got farther south than the South Korean army could ever predict. And they changed into South Korean uniforms. And now they're marching through South Korea on their way to the Blue House, the presidential house. And the plan was to assassinate Park Chung-hee and escape back to North Korea by getting in the motorcade of the presidential cars and drive back up to North Korea. They thought everybody would just salute and let them drive by and get back up and escape into North Korea. That was the plan.
그때 그 북한에서 보낸 68년도 1월 20일 날에 31명의 그 특공대 공비가 청와대 정문까지 왔을 때 그때 우리 경찰하고 처음에 만났어요. 청운중학교 후문에서 경찰 종로 경찰서장이 이제 검문했을 때 그 사살하고 또 순경도 총에 맞아 죽고.
It was a James Bond style squad of highly trained North Korean commandos who had come down and had run, marathon runners. So the South Koreans and the Americans knew they had come through the DMZ.
It didn't work out so well because of the 31 commandos, 29 were killed. There was a big firefight that night, and 2 survived, Kim Shinjo and one other man. The other man was they took him into a police station, and they didn't have him handcuffed well. And with his hands, he was able to grab a South Korean soldier's hand grenade, pull it off the belt, pull the pin, and drop it on the floor in this police station, which would have killed most of the people in the police station. There were a lot of people gathered there. But a South Korean soldier picked up the North Korean that had done that, slam dunked him on the grenade. The grenade blew up and killed only him. It didn't kill anyone else in the room. So now there's only one commando left. And he was in hiding for several days. And while he was hiding, he decided he didn't want to die for Kim Il-sung. And he surrendered, thinking he might survive, he might not survive.
그래서 지친 상태였어요. 지친 상태였는데 그냥 나오면 살려준다니까 그때는 그 순간에는 이북에서 보낸 김일성 생각도 안 나고 그래서 그냥 무기 실탄, 수리탄 고자리에다 놓고 손 들고 그냥 나왔어요.
To jump to the end of the story is he eventually made it in South Korea, converted to be a Christian, and became a South Korean minister in a South
Yeah.
Korean church. And we visited his church.
And he was a pretty popular minister, as I understand it. He had a pretty big following. Everybody knew who he was.
Everybody knew who he was. The church wasn't big. It was outside of Seoul in a small rural area, but everybody knows who Kim Shinjo. And we were able to interview him and talk about his escape. Remember what he said about how he came to accept the South Korean story? You remember that?
Yeah, I was impressed because, from what I remember, he thought, first off, he wasn't treated roughly. He was treated with respect, and the interrogations were not aggressive or
Not
violent.
brutal. Yeah.
They were just interrogations. You know, obviously there was a lot of interest to know more, as much as they could about him. Were there going to be further attacks coming down the road? What's happening? But I thought it was interesting that I think they kind of won him over.
북한에는 김일성이가 잘못이 있고 김일성이가 지령을 받고 나가라니까 나온 거지 본인 스스로 나온 것도 아니고 그래서 이게 수사관들이 나에 대해서 무슨 이렇게 욕을 한다든가 때린다든가 이런 거는 전혀 없고 사랑으로 인간의 정으로서 그때 수사관들 나에게 대해주었어요. 내가 이 길을 위해 마음의 생각이 이제 바뀌어 변화되기 시작해가지고 수사관에게 모든 수사를 협조와 그때 협조 응한 겁니다.
That was part of the process, and plus, I think he said they'd take him and drive around Seoul, and he'd actually see that, hey, you know what, Seoul's pretty prosperous.
The story is he was convinced that when he saw all the traffic in Seoul, that they'd lined up every car in Seoul to drive by to impress him.
It's kind of like Khrushchev's visit to Los Angeles.
Yeah,
That's what he thought. That every car in America went to L.A. I always thought about those two together
that's
because he
interesting.
had the same exact story.
And so they said to him, okay, where do you want to go? We'll get in the car, you say left, right, we'll go where you want to go. And day by day they said, where do you want to go? What do you want to go see? They took him to the markets. He could see all the markets. He soon saw the prosperity of South Korea, saw they were not lying to him, saw they were treating him decently, and he changed.
Did he even serve term in prison or anything? I think it was just a couple years of kind of interrogation and going through this process, and then he was free, right?
Yeah, he was free. It was just several months.
Oh, was it
really.
just several months?
Yeah. And then when he said he accepted South Korea, there was repercussions for his family in North Korea.
Yeah, he said that.
I believe
they
his
were
father
killed.
and mother were both killed
Yeah.
because of that. So it's a sad story, but he's a wonderful guy. I really enjoyed meeting him.
Yeah.
And I have a personal investment in this story because I was a missionary in Seoul, May of 1968, when this occurred.
And that night, we were just folding up, getting ready to go to bed when we heard this pop, 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 pop stuff going on. And we thought, oh, there's some kind of exercise. And then we saw machine gun fire. We could see the tracers. And if you can see the tracers, you know those aren't blanks.
And we went outside and looked, and the sky was all lit up with these illumination flares. And they kept setting them off so that you could see everything as if it's in the middle of the day, anytime. And in Korea in 1968, there were military exercises all the time, air raid drills and take cover and all this sort of stuff. So we thought it was some kind of exercise, especially around the Blue House, protect the Blue House, something or other. And so we went outside and looked and thought, oh, this is interesting. We climbed up the hill on the top of one of our other buildings up on the roof so we could get a good look at it. And I'd been in the National Guard already at that point. And I looked out and I saw tracers.
Tracer rounds.
And when there's a tracer, there's four others. Tracers are 1 in 4, right? And so I knew that this was live fire. And I said, hey, boys, this is live fire. Let's get off this roof. We might get shot. And sure enough, 2 doors down from us, there was a 65-year-old gentleman who heard all the shooting and the flares and all of this, and opened his door to see what was going on. Right then, one of the squads came right by our street, right down our street. It turns out there were, of the 31, they divided into 6 5-man squads and came down different avenues into Seoul to get over to the Blue House to carry out their mission. And this gentleman opened the door to see what was going on. At just the wrong time, they came right by him, popped him right there, and he died. So we're up on the roof watching all of this, and we could have caught a stray bullet just as easy as not. So when I found out that Kim Shinjo was still alive and that you wanted to interview him, we looked around and found a way to interview him and saw him.
And he was very gracious and accepted us into his.
Very, very gracious. He's one of the best examples of how a North Korean defector can survive in South Korea.
Yeah.
It's hard for some of them. They can't adjust.
No, and it is hard. I mean, I think that was the irony of our film, Unfortunate Brothers, is as we got toward the end of the film, what I understood was that everybody wanted the idea of reunification, but after integrating thousands of refugees or North Korean refugees over however so many years, it didn't go really smoothly, and I think there was this recognition that, this would be a little harder than we thought. So maybe reunification is good, but maybe not now, maybe later.
And Germany was a real eye-opener for Korea, because they saw how hard it was to reintegrate East Germany into West Germany, and the scale of reintegration was a lot easier for Germany than it would be for Korea. So there are a lot of Koreans now that say, yeah, unification, but down the road a ways, let's keep our secure economy going first. Well, so that's the story of the Unfortunate Brothers and the story of Minister
Kim Shinjo.
Kim Shinjo, a great guy, a great interview.
Yeah.
So,
that was the highlight of the production. I think one of the highlights is interviewing him.
Yeah, it really was.
Him
So if you get a chance, The Unfortunate Brothers, great documentary. And thanks again, Dodge Billingsley, for the chance to talk with you. And we'll see you next time on The Frog Outside the Well Research Center. Bye.